We good, Terry?
Okay.
Great. Happy New Year. And welcome to our January regular board meeting, January 7th, 2021. In accordance with an act to implement provisions necessary to the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Maine in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, as enacted to read Section G11 MRSA, Section 403A, public proceedings through remote access during declaration of a state of emergency to COVID-19 and for 30 days following the termination of that state of emergency, the regular board meeting will be held through Google Meet. The meeting will be live streamed and available for viewing at www.msad11.org. Members of the public wishing to make a comment are invited to do so during the public comment sections of the meeting and may call 207-582-5346 or send an email to school board, capital S, school, capital B, board at msad11.org. Again, you may call 207-582-5346 or email us at school, capital S, B, capital board at msad11.org. In addition to the regular public comment section at the beginning of the board agenda, an additional public comment section has been added at the end of the agenda to provide the school board with the ability to answer questions sent to them during the meeting. Pursuant to subsection 403A of MRSA, Maine Revised Statutes Annotated, we will now confirm that each member of the MSAD11 school board can hear and be heard. We will do this by calling the roll. Members present are asked to say yay. We ask all members to listen and report any audio difficulties when the roll is complete. I will call the roll. Becky Fless, yay. Veronica Babcock.
Yay.
Yay.
Teresa Garrett.
Yay.
Matthew Lillybridge, I don't believe is here yet, but he is coming. Jim Lothridge.
Yay.
Nicole Medor. Matthew Marshall.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier.
Yay.
Melissa Tracy.
Yay.
And Tony Beach.
Yay.
Great. Thank you. Administrative staff.
Were you going to call the student reps?
Oh, yes, I should do that. Quentin Martin.
Yay.
I'm sorry, Quentin. I just didn't even look that far down the paper.
Forgiven.
And you too, Gwen. I apologize. Gwen Bolduc.
All good. Yay.
Thank you, guys. So sorry. Okay, now moving along. Administrative staff.
Yes, Pat Hopkins, superintendent. Andrea,
Andrea Dish, business manager.
Angela,
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Chad,
Chad Kempton, high school principal.
Christina,
Christina O'Neill, principal of Pittston Randolph Consolidated School.
Alicia,
Alicia Morris, Director of Special Services.
Gabe,
Gabe Dofsty, Director of Operations.
Jared,
Jared Dumas, Assistant Principal, Gardner Area High School.
John,
John LaPerry, middle school principal.
Josh, Josh was here and he left. So maybe he'll be back. That was Josh Farr. the Director of Adult Education. Katie Gould,
Katie Gould, principal at Helen Thompson School.
Karen,
Karen Moody, principal of Laura Richard School.
Nate,
Nate Stubbert, athletic director.
Terry,
Terry McGuire, director of technology.
and Vicki.
Vicki Duguay, principal at Riverview Community School.
Thank you very much. Now let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Public comments for items on the agenda.
I have not received any public comments.
Review and approval of agenda minutes, prioritization of items and alteration of the established agenda format sequence as needed.
Yes, I apologize. I have a number of adjustments to make. The adjusted agenda was sent out late this afternoon. I apologize for that. So I will go through and highlight those adjustments. On page 3, under ad hoc committee, we have turf committee, and we've put a bullet underneath for update on funding sources and fundraising. Also an update on an MOU with McGee Construction. Under general information, we have Allie Ballou, educational technician, number 2, an ed tech 2 in special education at the Helen Thompson School. She has been hired. Under old business, we want to give the board an update on the MSAD11 instructional models. Under board chair report, Becky is going to provide an update on filling the vacancy of the Gardner School Board position. Under my report, I want to update the board on earned leave for non-unionized employees. Also want to speak to you briefly about snow days and ESSER number 2 funds.
Thank you.
Those are my changes, Becky.
Thank you. Motion to accept the agenda as adjusted.
Motion to accept agenda as adjusted.
Thank you, Alyssa. Second.
Second.
Second
Tony.
by Tony. Thank you very much. All in favor, Becky Fless, yay. Veronica Babcock,
Yay.
Sylvia Brown,
Yay.
Lisa Garrett,
Yay.
Matthew Lillibridge, Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Nicole Medor, not here yet, Matthew Marshall,
Yay.
Thank you. Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Melissa Tracy,
Yay.
Tony Veet,
Yay.
Clint Martin,
Yay.
okay, and Gwen.
Yay.
Thank you. Great. Approval of the agenda. And approval of minutes of previous meetings. Special board meeting of December 3rd, regular board meeting of December 3rd, and special board meeting of December 14th. Motion to approve.
So moved. Tony.
Tony, may I have a second, please?
Second, it's Alyssa.
Thank you. All those in favor, Becky Fless, yes. Veronica Babcock,
Yes.
Nancy Fourier Brown,
Yay.
Teresa Garrett,
Yay.
Matthew Lillibridge still not here. Okay. Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Nicole Medor not here yet. Matthew Marshall.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Melissa Tracy,
Yay.
Tony Veach,
Yay.
Quentin Martin,
Yay.
and Gwen.
Yay.
Thank you. Recognition and celebration. As written.
As written, John Umlin has officially resigned from the school board because he has temporarily moved out of the district and will be moving out of the town or the city of Gardner. So John has served on the board for 2 years, I believe, Becky.
2 years.
So we certainly want to recognize John for his years of service on the school board. So on behalf of the school board, I sent him a letter thanking him for his service. And you usually give a gift certificate when you have a board member leave, and we'll make sure that John receives that.
And ordinarily, under regular circumstances, we would also have cupcakes. And Gwen and Quentin would serve us cupcakes, but you're on your own for cupcakes, kids. Sorry about that. And John, if you're listening, thank you so much for your dedication and your commitment to our students. And maybe you'll run again as a resident of West Gardner. We'll have to see about that. So thank you very much. Correspondence?
Just as written.
Okay. Committee reports.
Well, the capital area tech, they have not met, but they are expected to meet at some point this month. I'm not sure who the capital area tech person is. Oh, it's Nicole Madore. I will be sure to make sure Nicole is made aware when that meeting is scheduled.
That would be great. Okay, finance.
Curriculum committee.
Curriculum, okay, yes, curriculum committee.
On December 8th, we met. We had a great opportunity to talk to David Walker, who's the director of music for the district. He gave us an outline. Obviously, with COVID, they've been doing some things outside, but with the weather, they need to move things inside. So he gave us a detailed brief as to what he was doing with safety and mitigating the spread of COVID within the district, and he's got a very firm grasp on what needs to be done. He is referenced in some studies from some universities that have worked really well and detailed some and adopted some practices. So I think the curriculum committee was very impressed with what the music department's doing throughout the district in order to provide a service to the students that love music. And I think we're in a very, very good space. Would you agree, Angela?
Yes, it was very thorough, and there was just some adjustments to our original guidance that were requested as a result of the updated research and the updated guidance from the Maine Department of Education that the curriculum committee felt comfortable supporting.
Angela, did you want to talk a little bit about financing for the literacy program for next year?
So our focus on the meeting on Tuesday will be on the budget for curriculum and instruction and any anticipated shifts and changes that we have. And one of them this year, we focused a fair amount of the curriculum budget on implementing a newly purchased math program in K-5. So we anticipate next year's budget will include some programming or instructional resources to support the ongoing curriculum work in literacy. And we'll go into detail on Tuesday about that. But there were a lot of questions at this last meeting to ensure that the support you provided to ensure that we were able to have a literacy coach this year could further enhance our work towards increased student achievement by making sure that we have a curriculum in place, which is what we're working through right now, and then making sure that we invest in instructional resources that will allow the teachers to truly enact that curriculum.
Great. And our next meeting is scheduled for January 12th.
Great, thank you. Dropout prevention, it says there was no meeting, but Jim, didn't you and I?
We met.
Okay.
Yeah, we did meet. We met on the 5th, just 2 days ago.
Okay.
And we discussed, bear with me, I put this in very small type and I haven't got my good glasses on. So we discussed how we were going to handle tardy and absences while we're doing remote learning, both in the red and the orange, whatever it is, what color we're in. But and nothing was put in concrete. John will talk, I'm sure, a little more about that. We also should have our dropout prevention plan done, and we'll have come to a final draft at just before the next board meeting, and we'd like to bring that to the board for their consideration, whether you want to look at it and vote, or whether you want to look at it and postpone it for a month. That's up to the board as a whole. And but I think we did a pretty good job. We intended to actually produce this last year, but as you know, things never worked out the way we thought. And we have made a few small tweaks, but not much, to accommodate ourselves for the COVID situation. And one of the concerns that I have and the other committee members have is that as we get into this year, we have juniors and seniors and some sophomores now that really have had a huge trial with their education. I mean, they're missing a lot. And we're trying to figure out how we can make sure we keep these, the ones that are very well supported and that are the exceptionally gifted ones. I don't think we got too much problem. They'll take care of themselves. But I'm worried about the kids that have challenges at home and in their personal lives. And hopefully we can get work with something like that. I would like to see if the administration could get us, Pat, I'd really like to see a health professional, a mental health professional on this committee, at least for the short term. This is just a 2-year outreach, I'm thinking, to try to get something ahead. But I'd like to see, we've got good representation from Joan in the lower grades, but we really need somebody that's a mental health expert in the upper grades. So if you could work that with us, work it out with us and with John, I would greatly appreciate it. And that's about it. John's got some other things he's going to talk about.
Yeah, James, what we really discussed, we talked about making attendance, we really talked about the students that are out in quarantine and working remotely from home. And we discussed that in our ad team today as well. And then a couple of the other things we discussed around absenteeism, related to the middle school and the high school, when it comes to how many classes, how long are you there for the day, how long you attend each class. But those are, as we talked today, are really school-based decisions and not as closely related to dropout prevention as they should have been as we were discussing it. But one thing we are going to do in February, we're going to review the action steps within the plan for this year because of the pandemic, and see where there may be some flexibility to support kids regarding SAT meetings, regarding how we do things, because it has been very challenging, especially for the high school kids this year. So we're going to discuss that more in February. But really the big piece is to look at the plan and get it approved, because the plan does really support our normal school year. And we really think it's ready for approval, and we'll present that in February.
Now, we didn't talk about the SAT or anything like that in our meetings. But
no, we didn't.
With your administrative meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, well, no, we had discussed in our meeting, Jim, that we were going to look at the action steps to see if there was flexibility to support kids, because you were talking about supporting the high school students that are sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
Okay, as long as we're not reinventing the wheel and starting all over again.
No, we were just going to relook at that, and we did discuss that.
Okay. I didn't understand it quite as you do, but that's okay.
Okay.
Well, and just to add to it a little bit for clarity, Jim, what we discussed today in the administrative team meeting is any of the specific attendance proposals really should be tied to the building handbook and the student handbook, because the handbooks are the ones that already identify how we're going to handle attendance. You know, if someone is tardy or if they're late. So what we need to do is really look at how we're going to handle those situations in the current situation that we're in, and see about updating those handbooks to reflect the conversation that you all had in your dropout prevention committee. So it's taking the recommendation that you guys made, but kind of shifting it to the student handbook and not tying it to the dropout prevention plan.
So, okay, I'll be talking to you later about that, because that is not what I understood at all after working on this for 2.5 years. So
All we're talking about is just the appendix, not anything else that you discussed, only the appendix that you guys wanted to add. That really is a student handbook issue with attendance, and that we can update the student handbook. It doesn't impact anything else that you've worked on for the dropout prevention. That remains absolutely intact, and honors the work that your committee's doing.
I want to see it in black and white then, because that is not, as I understood, we've been working on this. You're seeing anyways, this is too much to take up in this time, but I'd like to talk to you about it later.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
All righty, that's fine. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Terry, Matthew Willibridge is having a difficult time accessing the meeting. Thank you. Finance Committee, we met on December 15th. We went over the district budget and revenue projections. Andrea, would you mind helping me with those?
We just spoke in generally, basically that the state the state revenue projection is looking better than originally anticipated. We talked about other figures that would, other factors that would affect our subsidy for this year, our reduction of students, and the increase in valuation. We briefly spoke about federal grants. So that's basically what we covered with the revenue projection.
Thank you. And then the budget timeline, when we will begin any moment.
We've begun.
We've begun.
Yeah.
The ED 279 will be coming by
It's every year. It's supposed to be in our hands by February 1st. Some years it is, and some years it isn't. They are working feverishly on it this year because of all the changes. They are hoping to have it by February 1st or shortly thereafter.
And then we talked about the 5-year capital improvement plan with Gabe. And we talked about CRF funds. Terry and Gabe updated the committee on the various district projects funded by coronavirus funding. We did a new phone system.
All the technology and implementation of everything. I just want to give a kudos to Terry and Gabe for all the work their teams did.
The immense amount of wiring and so many things.
So the great news, Becky, is we just finished doing the rest of the billing for those grants, and we have left very little on the table. Out of almost $4 million, there was only approximately 40,000 that was left unspent, and that was because of things that had not arrived on time. So we did extremely well.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Well done.
Thank you. That is great. Policy, no meeting. However, let's see, we have some second read policies. Tony?
Yeah, so we have a second reading, like to present to the board on the first reading we did last month. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the second reading of those policies listed as a bundle.
Tony, do you also want to include the job descriptions for a
And
second read as well?
I would like to include the job descriptions and the rescission in that motion. The job
I'll
description.
second that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, as listed.
All right then. All those in favor, I'll call the roll. Kathy Cluff, yay. Veronica Babcock,
Yay.
Nancy Fortier-Brown,
Yay.
Teresa Garrett,
Yay.
Nancy Woodridge,
Yay.
Jim Lockridge,
Yay.
Nicole Medor, Matthew Marshall,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Tony Heat,
Yay.
Quentin Martin,
Yay.
and Gwen Bolduc-Ignatiak.
Yay.
Thank you. Great. Let's see, student reps.
Well, as you know, we've been in red mode for the past while. Yeah, so not a lot of extracurricular activities have been going on. We've continued to have musical rehearsals virtually, which I'm very thankful for because at least that gives you something to do. Something positive that did happen is we had our POL winner, Caitlin Nestor, and our POL runner-up, Brett Palmer. So Caitlin Nestor will be moving on to regionals. So that is a positive thing that happened. And we, or at least I can say for myself, I am very excited for next week's school week.
I'll bet you are. You've had enough already?
I can say I have. I had some input from students about being in red mode. Most of it was, I'm gonna highlight the positive things. I asked people in some of my classes to email me if they had like input that they wanted me to share with the school board, and I got a lot of, it's great because I have time to go skiing, which is
good.
a very large plus, especially in this weather. So they were very pleased with that. And having the schedule change in red mode has made it much less stressful to switch back and forth. The shorter classes have made it easier for students to get work done. And one thing that I've been really enjoying is having the ability to share slideshows much easier without all the technical difficulties in a classroom that happen sometimes. So that has been a huge plus in my book.
That's excellent.
That's what I have for now.
Perfect. Okay, next we have got the turf field conversation. And I made notes so that I wouldn't wander. An update on the fundraising. Pat, how do you feel like we should proceed with this particular part?
I think you just start in with your notes, kind of present your thoughts.
Okay, so I'm just going to read to you guys what I have written, and then hopefully we'll have conversation that stems or springs off of there. We find ourselves on the precipice of an opportunity not only for ourselves but for our district and our community. We began this project in the fall of 2018 during the football season. We were excited by the response of students and community members supporting what we knew would be a difficult project to complete. We said at the outset of fundraising that we would not use taxpayer dollars for this project. We were able to raise enough money to actually pay New England Turf, $225,000. And then the pandemic hit. We as a board at that time ceased all fundraising efforts. It did not feel right ethically to ask individuals and businesses to contribute to our project when families were struggling financially and businesses were as well. We continued to work toward our goal through donated services from Black Diamond Consulting, who donated all of the engineering and site work planning that was submitted to the DEP so that we were able to acquire the necessary permitting, which was new. We had not had any permitting up to this point. The turf committee began weekly meetings again this fall after not meeting over the summer while we were busy working on our return to school plan. About a month ago, one of our major donors met with the committee and stated that they were committed to seeing this project through and that they were interested in doing the work now. They're a donor that started with a $140,000 donation, but because of the timing and their availability, they would like to begin the work now. And the amount of their donation has increased to $252,555. Though they would be grateful if they could be reimbursed for some of the beyond expenses of the initial donation, they are willing and happy to make this $252,555 donation. With these pieces of information in hand, I'm asking that the board have a conversation about perhaps pivoting from what we said we would do. We have all talked about the students losing so much during this time. We've talked about the hopelessness and the feeling of being isolated and alone and the difficulties of remote learning. I would like us to consider two possible different scenarios. In the spring, if we are able to, and Andrea, I'll need your help to explain how we would do this, but because we are already operating in an approved budget year and our expenses have been less in some areas, if we are able to, and we could legally move monies from different areas of the budget that we have not needed to spend because of our different delivery of education and lack of programs, athletics, transportation, etc., into the athletics budget and pay for the remainder of the turf field, or to pay the $206,000 originally committed by the school board. That's one scenario. And the second scenario that I would ask us to consider is a different idea, is that we could lease purchase the remainder of the project from New England Turf for $40,000 a year over 5 years, which is the equivalent of a teacher's salary. And lease purchasing is a practice that is very familiar to this district. We lease purchase our copiers. We've lease purchased hundreds of MacBooks over the years. And it's something that is not foreign to this district. Why consider doing it this way? For our kids, something good to come from this extremely difficult period of time. For our community, athletics in MSAD11 are a rallying point. I've never seen anything like it, but this community is committed to its students and its student athletes. To give something hopeful for parents and grandparents that have lost time with their kids, with their students, and with their friends. And for our donors that have given money, some as long as almost a year and a half ago, to begin the return on their gift. And finally, our largest donor is ready to donate now. So to say thanks, but maybe in a year or more, seems a little ungrateful when we can create a pathway to legally accomplish this goal right now. We can talk about continuing to raise money after we make a decision here, and I think that Chad and Nate, I know that Chad and Nate are anxious to continue to raise money so that any monies that we use differently than what we had anticipated doing can go back to the district. And if we can do that, that's exactly the goal that we want to do. I have no doubt in their commitment. I have no doubt in the commitment of the fundraising committee. The issue is expedience, and right now we have a donor who is ready to go now. So I'd like to have conversation about that, and I'm ready to entertain conversation.
Becky, Jim has his hand raised.
Oh, Jim, yes.
My question is actually for Andrea. What is the interest rate? I know it's a lease purchase, but can you give me a sense of what the interest rate will be for this lease?
They have not talked about a specific lease purchase using a specific vendor. We're just talking about it in general terms.
Okay. So it is not through the vendor itself, where we'd be going through a secondary financing source and then purchasing the product?
I think as it was explained to me, we have the option of financing with the vendor, but we might also explore other options as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Jim, we didn't pursue any of that on the front end because we wanted to talk as a board first. What are people willing? What are the board's feelings about this? We didn't want to overstep. We thought the conversation should happen in public before any perceived decisions were made.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
And again, this is more for Andrea. If we have the 200,000, is it 200,000 or 225 or 220, whatever the exact number was? Because I know the lease amount is, excuse me, 200,000 if we go that route. But if we have the 200,000 now, is it detrimental to us for the next? Was that me? If so, I apologize.
I don't know who that was.
Or was my dog set it off?
I think you may have to ask your question again, Matthew.
Sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
I guess the short version is, do we have the 200,000 now and with the effect, running operations throughout this year? What's the benefit to paying now the 200,000 if we have it versus the 5-year lease? That's the cut and dry version, I guess.
So let me explain the conundrum that we are in. While we have carryover funds, we are prohibited by statute from using it. So all of the money that we use to carry forward cannot be used. Legally, the only money that we are allowed to spend this year, and we do this every year during our budget meeting, is we are allowed to spend the budget as approved. And then the voters also allow us to spend any federal grant monies received. So while I may have money, or while we may have money sitting in carry forward, we can't use any of it for this. So typically when we talked about funding this project, we seem to always talk about it at the end of the year. And I can see how much money we have left remaining from our expenditures for the year. We are halfway through this budget year, and I am uncomfortable recommending that the board remove 200,000 from this year's budget for one, something that hasn't been budgeted, and two, not knowing what's going to happen for the remainder of this year. This year has been like any other year that we've ever experienced. So that makes me uncomfortable. However, if the board wishes to do that, we could look at moving monies around, but it's a reminder that if at the end of the year we should come up short, we're in a pickle. I don't know if I answered your question, Matthew. Okay.
Becky, Matt Marshall also has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Matthew, go ahead.
So I'm part of the committee, and I honestly think that the option of trying to finance it over a 4 or 5 year period is absolutely the way to go. I mean, we need to look at this from the perspective of these kids really need something, and the community needs something. And there's been a lot of hard work put into this so far, and we need to gain some momentum. The big mo is important, and I think that there have been hundreds of folks that have already donated out of their own pockets, $250 and $500 donations. Many businesses in the community, even though they've struggled, have decided that they were going to donate. And I don't think that I've heard of even one that has come back and said, I can't do it anymore. Business is such that the commitment I made a year ago, I can't live up to. And I think it's important to continue to support this project. This project is not like any other project in our district. It's district property. In 40 years, we haven't really put anything but maintenance and man hours into it. It needs to be repaired. It's going to cost at least a couple $100,000 to $300,000 to solder it, if more, if we go the other route. And I just think that if we have a local business that is willing to put $225,000 for the most part into our district and support our kids and to support the community, we need to jump on this very quickly. And I think we need to break ground quickly. I think as a group we need to be shoulder to shoulder on this and stand up for our kids, our community, and our district. We support West Gardner, Randolph, Pittston, and we just need to step up as a group. And there will be some criticism, I'm sure, given the times that we're living in. People are struggling, but we're going to come out of this. This is an opportunity that we really need to focus on, and I think this is an opportunity that we don't need to squander, for lack of a better term. So I'm all for this. I honestly think that I'm not necessarily comfortable, as Andrea pointed out, moving money around this year in order to finance it, but I do think that we need to really push forward, go full speed ahead on financing it over a 4 or 5 year period. As Becky pointed out, it's a teacher's salary, and it is well worth it for our kids in our community. And I've said this before. As far as the community goes, the greater Gardner community, the high school, the school district is the crown jewel of any community. And with that being said, I think that this will bring people to our community. People will move here. We will be able to raise money via other means, hold state high school district championships here, maybe some field hockey stuff, and a number of other things that is going to bring people to our community to spend money and visit our great town. So with that being said, I wholeheartedly support this thing, and I think we're going to get it done. That's it.
Bill Matthews, you stole all the thunder. Thank you. Let's see. Patrick Saucier and Jim Lockridge, you both have your hands up. And Teresa, did I see your hand up also, or? Okay. And then Tony. So let's go, Patrick. I'm just looking at my squares here. Patrick, Jim.
I was the last one that put it up, Becky. So.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah. So.
No, go right ahead. Go.
Just a quick question for Andrea. Some of these lease purchases, sometimes you can get a clause in there that there's a penalty for early payoff. Is that something that happens with the lease purchase agreements that we're looking at, or is this something that we can go into this lease purchase with a clause of no early payoff if we have the money to be able to pay it off with surplus, if you will, from this year's budget? Is that an option that's on the table? You're muted, by the way. I guess that's going to be the phrase for 2020.
It is. None of our lease purchase agreements have a prepayment penalty. So yeah, I wouldn't agree to anything that or I wouldn't recommend agreeing to or entering into a lease purchase that contained a prepayment penalty.
Do you think that might be the safest route to go in this option? So that way there, we're not putting the stress on you to find the money at the end of the year to make everything balance out.
Are you asking for my recommendation?
You're the one with the
Well,
checkbook, so.
I would prefer, if we need the money now, looking at a lease purchase option and then maybe paying it off at the end of the budget year, rather than carrying a commitment for 3 or 4 years. The life of this turf field is only 10 years, and we certainly don't want to be paying for a turf field or replacement of a turf field while we're paying for an old obligation. So, at the end of the year, maybe in May or June, we can discuss whether or not we want to look at paying it in full or whether paying additional principal towards to pay it off. But I think that depends on what the rest of our school year looks like.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, then Lisa, then Tony.
Becky, did you call me?
Mhm.
Okay. I normally don't like rental purchases or lease purchases or leases, but I think that's probably the way to go here. We can equal out our finances. We can get it done now. And I believe we should get it done now, get the ball rolling. I think it will help bring other donations in if we actually see dirt being moved and a turf covering being purchased. And I think we'll get something done. So if I'm ready to support this 100%, I think we need to do it. It'll be good for the kids and it'll be good for years to come. And I know I'm not too worried about being tied up with a lease for 5 years. These fields, normally what they tell us, and my son-in-law takes care of several of these, and he tells me that they're good for 10 to 12 years, and that they save the school district in injuries and general maintenance and upkeep. They're not, a turf field, a real turf field, it should be rejuvenated every so many years, and it's less than we've just ignored this field for 30 years. So I'd like to see us do it. Thank you.
Jim, I'm
Yes.
sorry. The reason that I wouldn't be interested in entering into a multi-year commitment is because of the uncertain economic times that we are currently in with this COVID crisis and not knowing the ongoing effect. I mean, there are a lot of things unknown at this point. So having one more thing in the budget that we're obligated for, if we're able to pay it off and we're in a good position, then that would be my preference, but it's certainly at the board's discretion.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more that if we've got the money, we should pay it down as quickly as possible. If we can only pay half of it, then we pay half of it. If we can pay it all, wonderful.
Yeah.
Do what we can do and do it as quickly as we can do it.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Totally agree, Jim.
Lisa? Yes, Jim, thank you.
So Andrea did answer some of the questions that I had, but one question I have is how much is the total cost of the project? Because I wasn't here in on the beginning. Just wondering.
So the total cost, I can only give you approximations, and I hope that's all right. And Andrea, fill in the blanks where you need to. But the total cost of the turf field project is about $750,000. Is that correct? Some changes happened after we had the engineering portion done, and when they did the soil samples. One of the issues is the field hasn't been touched in years. In the 20 years I've been on the board, all they've done is maybe aerated it a bit. And this is no reflection on the district. It's just that we've done a really wonderful job of maintaining our facilities, our buildings. and we have taken advantage of performance-based contracting and things that bring updated lighting and updated heating systems and updated wiring. And we've kept as much money in the classroom as we possibly can. And so the things that continually fall off the plate, like Matt was saying, the things that continue to fall off the plate are things like our fields. And we have spent tens of thousands of dollars on the soccer field at the Boys and Girls Club to create better drainage, and it still pools up with water. We haven't been able to control that. But and our parking lot, our paving is pretty much as old as each building. You know, we're still using original pavement. So the things that don't ever really get to the table are and get to the budget, just because we're always short of money and we're probably always going to be short of money, are our outdoor facilities, our fields and parking lots. And so while that sounds like a big number, when I think about putting a field that's going to be used not just for football, but it's going to be used for soccer and for field hockey and for lacrosse, and the other things that we can do with it. The intent is to rent it some because it's just off the island corridor. So our location is great. So about $700,000. Long answer to your one question.
And I just have one more question, because when I was a student at Gardner, we were always Class A. Everybody in my family that played sports was always Class A. How short are we of becoming back into that Class A? How short of a student population are we?
Would you like me to address that?
Yes, please go for it.
So, Teresa, we are Class A in some sports and Class B in some sports. It depends on which sport we're talking about. And as you may or may not know, the MPA is constantly changing classification. So it varies depending upon the sport and depending upon the year.
Thank you.
And
Welcome.
I would say, Becky, I have the spreadsheet in front of me.
Oh, good.
For full disclosure, I can share some of this information. This is a spreadsheet that Andrea has worked on with Gabe. And the total project with the field and other things, okay, so now we're talking about the entire project and not just the field itself, is projected at being about $1,058,000. Included in addition to the field, included in that is also project contingency, okay, in case there's anything that goes wrong. It includes a garage, it includes concession area renovations and a recognition wall. So all of that combined is, as I said, over the $1 million. Now, we have had donated, in addition to this one donor that Becky has talked about, we also have other donors. We have another donor that is looking at donating close to $100,000. A third one that's around $85,000. So in addition to, we've already mentioned Black Diamond that has done the engineering, and they have done all of this on their own dime. So the amount of money that we have for this project in donations alone for that type of work is close to $444,000. I mean, that is just remarkable. That is just remarkable. We've raised about $237,000. The board previously committed making an adjustment, making the loan of $200,000 or $206,000. So that would, if you tie that in, or if you do something with this lease purchase that you're talking about, that would make the money raised at just shy of $438,000. So what that all leaves us with for the time being is, for just the turf field alone, we would need around another $50,000-ish. I'm just giving you ballpark figures. And then to do everything else, it would be around another $160,000. But again, that includes garage, that's about $40,000. Concession stands renovations, about $30,000. The recognition wall, which is something we really do need to have to build, that's $40,000. And the importance of the recognition wall is that some of these large donors, we need to find a way of really recognizing them in a permanent way, not just through the length of the life of the field. So that's really important. And then, of course, as I already said, we have the project contingency. That's another about $40,000. So we also have improvements to the evacuation site. And that the evacuation route to Harrison Avenue. That is also rolled into this particular cost, and that's around $10,000. That is also a donation from the same large donor that Becky was referencing earlier. And that work could be started immediately if the board gives a nod of approval.
Thank you, Pat.
Good question. Tony?
Sorry, had some other noise here. Yeah, I would just like to say I really like the idea that this provides some hope towards what we've been working on. So I am very much in support of looking at how we can do this. I saw that Matt had posted a motion to move ahead with the lease purchase or whatever keeps Andrea happiest. So I would certainly like to get in line with what we can do reasonably. And I do want to kind of make a note. I know we're looking at doing this capitalizing on another generous donation, and I really respect that idea. I want to act swiftly out of respect for that and the effort that's been put in. I do want to point out that we're not just like jumping at this like we just thought of this. This has been a long, thoughtful process that has been delayed by COVID, and it's something we've been working on for a long time. So even in the sense that, yes, we're acting swiftly on it now, it is not an impulse sort of buy here in that sense. I just wanted to reflect on that and certainly want to support the motion towards getting those shovels moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And I want to say, Matthew, I'll call on you in just a second, but I just want to say it was stunning when this donor came in and said, we'd like to just more than double it to get it going. And I just think that's just so generous. This has been for our kids a really tough thing. So, Matthew Martin.
Yeah, Becky, I'll just reiterate, I was blown away in that same meeting that you were just talking about. I was just amazed at the willingness to get this moving and to just do some great things for our community. I used the analogy before about, if you have the opportunity to buy $1 million lake house property with a beautiful house, and all you have to pay is $300,000 to $350,000 for that, and even going beyond that, you can finance that $350,000 over a 4 or 5 year period. You figure out a way to do that. And I just think that's, and it sounds like everybody is on board, and I hope they are, but that's just sort of an analogy that I use, and I think it's kind of sums up where we're at. And that's it.
Thank you. Agreed. Veronica?
Hey, I just had a quick question. I obviously support this project. Again, and like Tony said, it's not something that's all of a sudden we're talking about. It's been talked about for a while. It's something the community and the kids need. And, quite frankly, right now we have people like I know in boosters, if the concessions is part of what we're talking about, we're like ready to get going, getting that building renovated. That is my question. So when we talk about the funding for this, not just for the turf, it's for the entire project, Pat. So all those extras you talked about as well, I just want to make sure.
Well, the priority, and our first effort is to make sure that we raise enough money for just the field. Okay, that's the priority. And so we are short around $50,000 right now if the board approves about $200,000, you know, to kind of honor that 200,000, 206,000 that they originally said that they were going to loan the project. That still leaves us with around $50,000. And as Becky said, I know that Nate and Chad have been working on fundraising still. So that number may have changed already because I know that they're working feverishly behind the scenes to make that happen. Then the additional money, the $160,000 that I referenced, that's the additional money that would be needed to do those other items, those other projects. Okay.
Jim? Your hand is up, Jim. Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry. Is it appropriate to make a motion now? Everybody had their opportunity.
I think that Matthew Lillibridge tried to do that, and I kind of like the way he did it. Well, maybe you would be happy to second it. Matthew Lillibridge says, I make a motion to spend $50,000 over a 5-year lease for all the reasons Matt illustrated and to not make Andrea too nervous.
Can we clarify?
Yeah.
It's not 50,000 over a 5-year lease. It's about 50,000 a year for 5 years, for up to 5 years. So that's very different. And I do think it would be important that rather than talking about the annual lease or the annual amount, that you would determine what the total amount is that you're willing to lease over a 4 or a 5-year period. And then Andrea would work with the leasing company to figure out how much that would be each budget year. Is that okay, Matthew? If
Yeah,
we
that's
kind of make a
fine.
modification?
Yep, that's perfectly fine. And if
You just
Andrea's
need to tell us
smiling,
what that amount is.
we're okay.
What's the cap?
If it was 225 or whatever the donor who wants to, the amount the donor has who wants to get started, that I guess we work, around that number, 225, or we just say 250 if the board wants a nice round number, say 250 is the cap.
I think 250. I feel comfortable with that. And Jim, you're seconding that?
I'd second $250,000 over a 5-year lease.
I just want to throw something out there real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should have a little bit extra just in case. You know how the whoops, this happens, that happened, that little emergency fund set aside as well. So maybe go a little bit more than the 250. I know from experience, there's always something that goes wrong and you're like, oh, darn, I wish we had that little bit extra money. That's just what I'm thinking.
Now, Teresa, in the project, in the estimate or the numbers that I provided, there is a contingency account that we've set aside. And we have about $43,000 sitting in that contingency account. It's about 10%. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, conversation. I just want to recognize, I'd like to recognize Andrea here because she really works hard to make sure that we receive good support for the things that we want to do for our kids. She works tirelessly to do this work for us, and she's not even a taxpayer in this district, but she guards our money like she was. And so for that, I just want to recognize her as part of this because she really does help us to get to where it is we believe we want to be. So Andrea, thank you for even when it's not easy for you. I really appreciate that. Any other conversation? Oh, Veronica, your hand is up.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. Numbers are not my thing. So we're voting to only budget for the turf project, not the turf field, not the entire project. Because I'm kind of curious how the rest of that is going to get funded. Wouldn't it make more sense? And I don't know, I'm throwing it out to borrow for the entire project, or no, is that too much money?
The plan is that we're still going to fundraise for the other part of, or the remaining amount of the money. We still have the bricks to sell. Nate and Chad are already reaching out to other potential donors. Chad, you were in this meeting somewhere. Chad has communicated that $250,000 is sufficient for the needs for this particular project. Chad, do you want to say something in response to Veronica's question?
Yes, I'd say that given what the response that we've had so far with this project and the generosity that we've seen from everybody in the community, business owners and individuals, that we will find a way to come up with the remainder of the money, and that $250,000 is going to get this project well underway. We're going to, sorry, my phone keeps going off. This project is, well, $250,000 will be more than enough money to take care of this project. We don't even need to purchase the turf, the actual remainder of the turf, until later this spring, because the whole project that we want to do this winter is to get basically the foundation and the earthwork done and let Mother Nature do its thing and let it settle before they come and finish grade and lay the carpet down on the turf. So that expense for the actual turf, which I believe is around $175,000, doesn't have to take place until later this spring when Mother Nature's done doing its work. So, and in regards to the other projects, as we continue to fundraise, that money will go towards those extra things like the recognition wall. We had the ticket booths were a donated item through an Eagle Scout project, and so that was something that is an example of community support that we have here. Is that we had an Eagle Scout project that contributed to this field, and I'm sure that if we can get the materials for the outbuildings, that we could get plenty of people down there with hammers and nails and saws and so forth, and put up a nice structure for very little money as compared to what is in the budget. That's a contractor price. So I really think that if we focus on just getting the field done, funding that in a comfortable way, both for the school district, the project, and the taxpayers, that we're good to go.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear what I was voting on. Great. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Matthew.
Hey, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Nate, Chad, Andrea, and Gabe. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but they have done a remarkable job in some tough times, and they've got a million other things to do. So this has sort of been on the peripheral for them, and they have just done a great job. And I just wanted to take a second and tell them that I personally appreciate everything that you've done to get this moving forward, and you've maintained focus, and I think it's really helped us in the long run when it comes time to decide what we're going to do tonight. So thank you.
Agreed. So we have a motion in a second. Are we ready to call the vote? All right then, I will read through the roll. Becky Plus, yay. Veronica Babcock? Yay.
Katie McNamee released a statement. I'll just play that statement or a piece of it
Yay.
from the White House press secretary.
Brown?
Yay.
Teresa Barrett?
Yay.
Matthew Lillybridge,
Yay.
Jim Lockridge,
Yay.
Nicole Madore,
Yay.
Matthew Marshall,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yeah.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Tony V,
Yay.
Quentin Martin,
Yay.
and Gwen Bolduc Ignasiak.
Yay.
Thank you all very much. The MOU with the donor.
Yeah, we just wanted to update the board, let the board know that we are working on developing a memorandum of understanding with all of our donors. Right now, we're working on one with, I can say publicly, the company, correct?
Yes, I was just being careful.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's a secret that we are right now working very closely with McGee Construction to develop a memorandum of understanding, so it's really clear as to what they are donating and what we're going to provide them, or their organization, their business, in response to their donation. So they've been great to work with so far, and we're going to then be moving on to the other donors and developing MOUs with them as well. So I just wanted you to know that that work is happening behind the scenes.
Thank you. Let's see.
Becky,
Yes.
I had one quick question. What is your plan for start time? Is it in 2 weeks, a month, or we're looking at going next week?
Probably like 10 days, I believe.
10 days, 2 weeks? Good, thank you.
Is that not right, Gabe, or it is about right?
Yeah, it's I would say pretty close to that. We have a kind of like a construction meeting tentatively scheduled for Monday. So we're trying to get a bunch of the parties together that are going to be starting the project to meet with Black Diamond also all together, so we can kind of do kind of a start meeting and get everything pinned down exactly how it's going to go. So that's tentatively, and then maybe by the end of next week, we may be able to be actually starting on something actually on the field. Yep.
Look for that first shovel of dirt.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a great day.
I'm definitely taking pictures for sure.
I think we should all go there and watch. It's going to be great.
I think Munzing Media might be broadcasting it as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We need a gold shovel.
Right.
We need a gold shovel, yes. General information?
Just as listed.
Okay. Nominations, none. Old business.
Yes, instructional models. Wanted to talk to you. This is kind of a monthly standing discussion that we need to have on instructional models. You'll remember or recall back in November, I think it was, the administrative team came to you and we started talking about shifting to green. And wanted to start talking about finding ways in which we could bring students back on a more full-time basis. And so at that time, the board, due to the situation that we were experiencing in our school district, I think we had just gone red. At the middle school, we had an outbreak at the middle school, followed by an outbreak at the high school. The board had instructed us not to really move forward with our plan to go green until after the holidays. So here we are, we're now after the holidays, and once again, the administrative team is beginning to pursue this idea and to develop plans in order to try to bring students back to school on a more regular basis, providing that we can still meet the CDC guidelines in doing so. You know, one of our biggest factors here in deciding what we can do and figuring out what we can do is really looking at the number of students who are receiving their education 100% remotely. that will have such a large factor as to what we can do and what we can't do. If all of the students who are currently receiving their instruction remotely, if they all decide to return, then we're going to have a significant issue with our class sizes. We have some class sizes in the upper elementary that are around 25 students per class, and we certainly cannot accommodate them and still be able to comply with the CDC guidelines. So I know that there are lots of school districts that are beginning to make the shift back to green, or having students in school 4 days a week, or at least trying to bring other students back in on a more regular basis. And we hope to do the same. We have to keep in mind that every school district is a little bit different. Their needs are different, and because one school district can do something doesn't necessarily mean another school district can do that. As I said, for us, one of our challenges has to do with the class size. It has to do with our limited spaces. We do not have an abundant amount of space to be able to take a class with a high class size and just move that class somewhere else in the building. Most of our buildings are already at capacity. So that's a hurdle that we have to work on and overcome. We also are working under the current executive order from the governor that limits the number of people who can be in a space, in any one space at one time, to 50. So as we think about our high school and our middle school cafeteria area, for example, both of them are in the middle of the building and part of the hallway. So as we try to feed our students, we have to take into account the number of individuals who might be in the hallway walking back and forth to classes, the number of staff members who are supervising those students, in addition to the students who are eating lunch 6 feet apart. And we have to do all of that within maintaining that maximum of 50 students or 50 individuals within a certain space. So again, it's just another hurdle, another challenge that we need to overcome. Many of our schools are already feeding students in various other locations in addition to the cafeteria. We're already feeding students in gymnasiums, feeding them at the high school in the little theater or in the hallways. And so as we bring in additional students back into the building, we need to be thinking about those spaces in which we can feed students and support them in other ways. So today the administrative team met, and we are working to develop a plan to start looking at bringing our, hopefully first, it would be bringing back our elementary students, probably to do it in phases, that we would start pre-K to 2, hopefully, and then grades 3 through 5. And at the same time, at the high school and the middle school, be looking at trying to identify the students who are struggling the most, either academically or socially, and bringing them back into the buildings on a more regular basis as well. At the high school, for example, we talked about the potential of bringing back like our alt ed students and that population maybe 4 days a week. So we're working on this. The first thing that we need to do, however, is we really do need to survey our families and just find out exactly, if we are going to shift to the green model, how many are going to send their students back to school. We know that there are some families who are comfortable having their children in the building 2 days a week, but would not be comfortable 4 days a week. So if they're going to shift to a more remote instruction, then we have to think about the impact. We're already at capacity with the number of families who have opted to have their children educated 100% remote. So we are in the process of developing a survey that will go out as early as Monday or Tuesday next week. And we'll have that information back by the end of next week. So we're talking about a very fast turnaround time. And so beyond that, we are identifying our hurdles. We are figuring out or trying to figure out what we need to overcome those hurdles, with a goal of having our elementary students pre-K through grade 2, maybe back in school by the end of January, beginning of February. See how that goes for 2 or 3 weeks, and then learn, what works, what's not working, and then move toward grade 3 through 5. As I said, grades 3 through 5, those are where we have the larger class sizes. And so that's going to be a challenge if we have the majority of the families deciding to send their students back into school 4 days a week. We cannot comply with our CDC guidelines if we have 21, 22, 24, 25 students in the classroom. So we're just going to have to work through that and see what we can do. Later in the meeting, I'm going to talk to you about the fact that we're going to receive some additional federal funding. And that federal funding hopefully will be available to us this spring. And that funding may allow us to actually hire some additional staff members so that we could divide some of our classes if we can find the space to accommodate them. That is not something we could have done without this money that we're going to be receiving. So that's huge. And that really may help us to get students back into school on a more regular basis. So that's kind of where we are at this point. But we are moving forward. We are moving forward. We'll have to see what happens in our community. We'll have to see what happens in our school in terms of close contacts, in close of COVID. But we're hopeful that now that we're beyond the holiday season, that things will settle down a little bit. We have the vaccines that are beginning to roll out, and we are hopeful that the shift to have more in-person instruction is something that we are going to be able to do in the very near future. I don't know if administrators have anything that they'd like to add to that first, and I see Jim has a question. I would ask Jim, if you don't mind, if there are administrators first who would like to contribute to anything that I've just said. I guess not. Jim.
I don't know if it's out of left field or not, but those modular units that we have lease purchased at Pittston are fantastic. I think they're beautiful units. But is there anybody that sells a much less quality unit that we could lease for short term to give us some more space at each school? And I don't know if it even that possibility would exist any place, but I don't know if it's possible. Just a thought.
Yeah, Jim, it's a great thought. I would look to Gabe to answer. The last time, if you recall, that we were trying to purchase that or lease purchase that modular unit, it was so many weeks out. Remember, it didn't arrive until after school started. The availability of those are just very limited. I'm not sure whether that has changed or not, Gabe. Do you know?
I'm not sure if it has changed. It was something that I did look into when we first started. Well, this is probably back midsummer when we knew we had money coming to us to see what we could do for class sizes and if we could do modulars. At that point, pretty much every other district was doing the same, and I'm sure there was quite a waiting list then. If we do have more money coming to us, I'm sure it's going to be the same. So it'll be something I'll look into quickly, and I'm sure we can get at least a rough idea of time frame on when something would be available. I actually saw one of the units similar to what we put in over at Pittston go across the Gardner Randolph Bridge 2 weeks ago, going to some other school district, and it was I happened to pull out of LER school and see it rolling by right by the school. So it was kind of brought back some memories of when we pulled those into the Pittston school. So it's something I will look into, definitely.
Thank you.
Good idea. Thank you, Jim. Other questions?
No, but I just want to remind Jim about the setup costs for prep of that modular. I think we spent over $50,000 to get the site prepped for the modular at Pittston. So that would be a significant investment as well. So I'm not sure whether or not we would want to do something for a temporary facility.
Well, considering that we continue to have spacing issues in some of our schools, I think about Helen Thompson. We're always struggling for space at Helen Thompson. Maybe if we really are in a position where we're able to purchase a modular unit, maybe it's not so temporary.
We would just need to buy a really good quality, gently used one.
I want to say I totally support this idea, and I appreciate the principals and administration always looking for ways to get our kids back at school as full time as possible. So thank you.
And so I know at the last couple board meetings, you have expressed your gratitude and your appreciation for our work and your comfort in us making the decision on whether we shift to red, whether we stay in yellow. I always have felt that you've given me the authority to do that based on an immediate need. Just for clarification, are you comfortable in me making that decision of when we go green, how that happens, or is that something you want me to bring back to the board? Because it was back in November in which the board said you weren't comfortable in going green until after the holiday. So I just want to be really clear as to what authority I have in advancing the work that the administrators are going to be doing around this particular issue.
I personally feel like you guys have administration who's done their due diligence, and you have not pushed to go green if you know you can't do it. I personally think Pat and the administrators can make that decision. I don't feel like we need to meet and vote on it every time. Again, that's my personal opinion. I feel like there's been thoughtfulness going into every decision that's made. And I totally trust Pat and the administrators to do that without us meeting and voting on it and discussing it.
Others?
I have a comment. I would agree with what Veronica just said exactly. And just say, as long as, I think you also do a good job, Pat, of giving people lead time, you know, for whatever transitions families have to do. I know that's a concern for some. So I would just, you know, say to the public, you know, be aware that people are working hard to make this work, and there's so many variables. And it's not easy. And if it were a different situation for me, I think it would be more stressful. I'm able to work at home, so I have a little more leeway. But I just offer that I think we have been very careful, and that's a good thing. And we should be proud of that. And I fully support whatever you think is appropriate. So thank you for asking us. So.
Matthew, Marshall, and then Jim.
Who's up next?
Matthew Marshall, and then you, Jim.
No, I'm good, Becky. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Okay, I would just, if you can make it happen, Pat, I think you should do it. And I don't think you need to come back to the board. I think we were all pretty clear that we were going to back you and we would agree with what you decide. We can't be micromanaging the situation. You have dozens of different things to look at. And if we start trying to look at every single one of those, we're never going to get anything done. You do what you need to do and let us stand back and talk to people if necessary. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you were that was your opinion in really shifting from a yellow mode to green or more in person. A lot of school boards are expected or are making those decisions. There are votes that are happening at the board meeting, and I just want to make sure that I gain that clarity. I certainly wouldn't want to move the district forward in a particular position that you weren't comfortable with. So I appreciate that that confidence, and I appreciate that clarity.
Hey, Pat, this is Matt.
Mhm.
It would be nice to get as soon as you know we're going to green, just kind of a heads up ahead of time, so I can personally rejoice ahead of everyone else.
I will definitely do that. I will just notify you as an FYI only. Again, it would not be for discussion for members of the public, so you know, so that there's no discussion happening outside of the board meeting. But I can at least give you a heads up so you know what the plan is.
And you always do, so thank you.
Thank you. So that's what we have.
Great, thank you. New business, consideration of allowing the city of Gardner to use the city, Gardner High School gym for a special election on Tuesday, March 9th.
Yes, the city of Gardner has reached out again to ask if they could use the high school gymnasium. They have a special election on March 9th. I believe it's to fill Shenabello's vacant position because she is now Secretary of State. I've spoken with Mr. Kempton. We just had a brief discussion and felt that for a special election, we could probably accommodate their request, and we would not need to shift the high school into red mode because we probably are not looking at a large turnout. It wouldn't be the same situation that we faced back in November. I would recommend, if you support them using that space, that once again we indicate that they will need to hire a company to come in and thoroughly clean the gymnasium the day following the election, because we will have PE classes starting on Thursday. And it would mean that we would not be able to hold PE classes on that particular day. Now, it does make me wonder, just so you know, it makes me wonder whether they're going to come back again and ask to use it in June. Now, I don't know what June is going to look like for us. I'm not sure what graduation is going to look like. We need to begin thinking about that. But if it's a traditional year, and I don't know that this year it will be, generally our gymnasium would not be available to the city in June because it is set up for end of the year celebrations, awards ceremonies, etc. So it may be possible for this June, but not necessarily moving forward. But I just wanted to kind of put that on your radar, that if they're requesting in March, most likely I foresee them requesting in June as well.
Agreed. Okay.
Are you guys okay if we allow them to use for March?
A thumbs up or a vote? What would you?
Yeah, I think a thumbs up is fine. This one is just not as invasive. I guess, you know, we're not talking about needing to shift to red in order to accommodate them. So if Mr. Kempton believes that he can manage having them in the building for one day, just a thumbs up on your part is fine with me. Okay, great. I will let them know that you are in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Board chair report. An update on the filling of the vacant Gardner School Board seat. John Umland resigned about 2 weeks ago because he sold his home in Gardner, and is actually building a home in Gardner, but in the interim is living in Farmingdale. So it's by statute had to resign from the board. So the process is the city of Gardner, the mayor reached out to me last week when it was listed in the paper, it was in the newspaper, so he reached out to me. What happens is it's open for a period of time. Right now it's open so that someone who desires to serve on the board can send an application or send something to City Hall, a letter indicating their interest. And then I believe it's on the 19th of this month, a Wednesday, the 19th of this month, the city council will appoint a person. And so far, I know that there has been one person that expressed interest. And I spoke with that person last week. And I'm hopeful that that we are able to. It's a 1 year finishing out of John's term, so I'm hopeful that whomever it is, it's a good fit, that they love the work, and that they'll want to stay for more than a year and dig down and do some of this work with us. So that's what I have about that. And then Pat, one more thing. I wanted to. Is this a good time to address the email?
Sure.
Okay, I wrote more notes again because I'm trying not to be wordy, so I'm going to read to you guys again. This is a response to the email that everyone received the other day. We each received an email this week from a parent, Amy Latagny, and I want to take a moment to address this. First of all, tone and respect matter. And I want to thank the school board members who reached out in defense of our district and of our superintendent. The countless hours that our staff has spent in an effort to think of everything that could possibly go wrong during this period of time is a tribute to our district and your commitment to our staff and students and what is best for them. It's unacceptable for any person to berate our superintendent, who is our educational leader. Our superintendent has dedicated time to this particular issue and countless hours to our district in an effort to protect us academically and legally. One of the statements that was made in the email was, what does it matter if we don't follow blindly the CDC? Just to be sure, what it matters is it's costly financially. The superintendent had to sign her name that said she would follow the CDC guidelines, and it would cost us approximately $3 million. And we have needed that $3 million to carry us through to where we are today. So it does matter. We're frustrated. We're all frustrated, and we are all tired. And none of us expected for this to continue for the length of time that it has. However, this is where we are. As individual board members outside the boardroom, your opinions are your opinions. I have no idea how you guys feel about mask wearing. I'm not asking, and please don't tell me. However, when we're working together in this room, at this table, how we work together is the most important thing. Whether or not we believe our opinions about this just doesn't even matter. It just doesn't matter. We just need to remain safe, and we need to follow the guidelines. It was stated that the superintendent blindly follows the above mentioned entities, the CDC, the DHHS, and the DOE. We're not paying our superintendent to second guess physicians or the DOE. We're paying our superintendent to make sure that she can provide excellent learning opportunities that are safe and well-staffed for all of our students. And our job as the school board is to make sure that we can provide the support that she needs to do her job. So my hope is that moving forward, we can have respectful conversations, interactions with the public. I'm hopeful that when frustrated, we're able to use our energies for good. If there are future emails of this tone, they will be not answered with any lengthy reply. It will simply say, thank you for your correspondence, because arguing with people who are just angry is not a good use of anyone's time, and it's just plain hurtful, and that's not an example we want to set for our kids. We are all role models for children, and they're watching us. Thankfully, we have a wonderful group of individuals that work with our kids every day. I want to say thank you for that, and our community is counting on us to keep doing this. So that's the response that I have to that email, and if anyone has anything they want to say, I welcome it. But I just want to make sure publicly, because all of our emails are public. I don't normally do this, but all of our emails are public. And so to deal with this publicly, I asked for advice first. Deal with it publicly, I was told. And so I'm dealing with it publicly because it's important for our staff, our superintendent, and for you, our staff, to know how much we appreciate you and that you have our support, even when we pivot from red to green to yellow. when none of us really wants to do that. That's not our first wish. Jim?
I couldn't agree with you more. I support you 100%. I read that email twice on the first day, twice on my next day, and you're a lot more tactful than I would have been. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I couldn't agree with you more. And Pat, I'm sorry you have to go through something like that. And you know I'm not afraid to say something if I'm not happy, but I'm happy with what you're doing so far, and I'll talk to anybody in this world about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, Becky and Pat, I use the analogy that a few years ago when the TC Hamlin School was happening, I was a very passionate person about that, and I get to know both of you in a similar manner, but I think when you started off with tone, and that's exactly right. I've grown to learn to be involved was important to me based on when that all happened, and I've gained much respect for both of you and for the board and our district. So it was disheartening, and I appreciate that you brought it up so we could talk about it. I don't think adding more people to it to make it more public is doing us any favors. I think we just need to deal with it in our district, and we do that already. So I just appreciate the fact that we can share it just like any other comment and keep doing our business as we do. So thank you, Pat and Becky, for the leadership on that.
I have the opportunity to see a lot of school boards and how they do business. We are really fortunate to have a board that is as respectful and kind as it is. I can't tell you how much I appreciate being able to be the chair of this board, because it's not like this everywhere. So, and that's partly why I wanted to bring it to the table and talk about it, is just respect. Tone and respect really do matter. And our kids are watching us, and we have things every day to do it better. And make sure we're working toward that. If there's nothing else, we'll move on.
Okay.
Superintendent report.
Sure, I have a number of things that I just want to bring to your attention. Back, I don't remember when, I don't remember if it was November or December, we had a conversation about offering rapid testing here in our schools for COVID. And I just wanted to give you an update on that. In the middle of December, when we had our official outbreak at the high school, we engaged in a conversation with the CDC. You had a couple administrators there. I know Chad and John were present, and we had our lead nurse, Kristen Martin. I think Nora, our nurse at the high school, was present, and a few other people. And in that conversation, we talked about the rapid testing, and what they shared with us is that the results are only most reliable after someone has had symptoms for 3 to 5 days. We were looking at bringing the test in, so if a student or a staff member began developing symptoms during the day, that we could do a quick test. But based on the conversation that we had with them, that the results really are not all that valid and not that reliable, I should say, until 3 or 5 days. And with symptoms, we've decided not to move forward with the rapid testing. It doesn't make sense, in our opinion, to do that if it is not going to give us that reliable information the moment someone begins to experience symptoms. So I just wanted to update you on that and let you know that that's what we've decided to do. I also wanted to let you know that I have been asked by the United Way to serve on a council called the Kennebec Valley Community-Wide Goal Setting Council. And it's a new organization that they're pulling together with various business leaders around the Kennebec Valley area to help us establish some community-wide goals that focus on financial stability in our communities, health in our communities, and education in our communities. And the work that I would be doing would really center around helping us develop 10-year goals that would be adopted throughout our communities in early 2022. It would just be an assignment that I would participate in from like February through December. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, so often in many communities, we have all of these nonprofit organizations that work independently, you know, that they have a task at hand, a goal, something that they're going to try to accomplish. And the idea here is that we will identify all of those and kind of bring us together so that we have a united goal that will hopefully help us as a community, a Kennebec Valley community, really achieve more in the long run. So I'll be starting that work soon. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Also, I mentioned, I think it was at our last meeting, that effective January 1, a new Maine state law has gone into effect that says that that requires us to provide earned leave right now for just non-unionized employees. All right, so that would be the central office, it would be our IT staff, it would be substitutes. We have to give earned leave now for substitutes, something that we've never had to do before. Coaches, our adult ed staff, and anyone else that doesn't really fall under a contract, that we are required to give them 1 hour of earned time for every 40 hours worked, to a maximum of 40 hours per year. For those who fall under a contract, that benefit will have to be negotiated the next time that their contract is up for negotiations. So we're only looking at the people that I've identified. I just want you to know that Andrea and I have been working with the negotiations team to start developing a procedure to put in place to handle the tracking of and the giving of this earned time. So we are developing a procedure at this point versus a policy as recommended by our school attorneys. There's a lot of moving parts here as the Department of Labor tries to figure out how this new law actually impacts schools, because schools already have a lot of benefits and a lot of time that they provide to their staff. And so the fact that we are now going to provide additional time, we don't know how that's all going to play out down the road. So I just wanted to make sure that I reminded you that this is indeed a new benefit that we have to provide, and wanted to make sure that you were aware that I'll be working with the negotiations team to figure out how to apply this new law in MSAD11. Also, at the last meeting, kind of moving on, at the last school board meeting, we talked about snow days. And we talked about the fact that we were really going to try to make snow days snow days. That was really important for students who have been spending all of their time on the computer to get out and enjoy the snow. Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but New Year's, right around New Year's, the weather forecasters, the meteorologists were starting to predict that we were going to have a snowstorm on Monday. This last Monday. Luckily, that didn't happen, and we were able to come to school. But it made me pause and really think once again about the decision to make a snow day, and really thinking about the fact that there are going to be times or circumstances in which we are not going to want a snow day to be a snow day. We're going to want it to be a remote day. Had it been snowing on Monday, to a degree that we couldn't send students to school, it would have been a shame not to still have it as a remote day, because there were so many students who had been out of school for a couple weeks. It really would have been important that they be able to connect with their teachers. So the administrative team talked about this today. And this is what we're thinking. We still may have real snow days. You know, it will really depend on the circumstances. There may be days where we don't have a lot of power, and we're going to have to treat it as a snow day. But should we be in a position where it's appropriate to have a remote day, the way it would work is that currently we have cohort D students. Our cohort D students go to school 4 days a week, that they would be told to stay home, and they would be asked to access their education remotely. Pre-K through 5 students on a remote day, that they will treat the day as if they were in the building. So if a student were to be in school on one of those days, they would log into their classroom. If the student were to be independently remote on one of those days, then they would not log in and they would continue to work independently. Grades 6 through 12, they're all going to be synchronous anyway. So they would just continue with their red model, and they would log in synchronously. And then, you know, there will be opportunities where we will still have snow days. There will be power outages, and there potentially, and there may be other circumstances. It could be the middle of February and everyone is just at their wits' end. We're all tired at looking at our computers, and we may deem one of those days a snow day. But just wanted to let you know, I really feel like we need to kind of straddle both allowing some snow days, but also the realization that some of those days should be appropriately so remote days. Okay. Also, then moving on, I wanted to let you know, as I mentioned earlier, that school districts around the state of Maine, school districts around the state are going to receive some additional funds to help with the coronavirus. So the state of Maine is expected to receive another $183 million in its ESSER funds or CARES Act funds. If you remember back in May when we were closed down, the state received about $43.7 million at that time, and that equated to around $389,000 for our district. We've held on to that money because we knew that the CRF funds, that $3-4 million that helped us make some air quality improvements to our buildings and helped with technology, we knew that that money was coming to an end on December 30th. Yet we had some year-round expenses. We hired a nurse. We've hired some subs. We've had some other needs. So we held on to that $389,000, and that's what we're using now to cover some of those year-long expenses. Well, if we receive $43.7 million as a state back in May, and now we're slated as a state to receive $183 million, that's 4 times more than what we received before. So that's what we are told that we can most likely anticipate receiving, 4 times more than what we received back in May. So we received around, as I said, $389,000. This time we're expected to receive, it'll be around another $1.5 million. Applications for project submittals will probably open the end of this month. And this money will be available sometime this spring. So as we talk about bringing students back to more of a green model, this is where the money is going to potentially be to help us hire additional staff if we can find staff. We are also struggling to actually find people to hire for some of these positions. We don't have people knocking on our doors at this point wanting to serve as a substitute or as an ed tech. What I would like to do is this money, this new money, it's going to be available to us through September 30, 2023. So unlike the CRF funds that we were told about it in, what was it, August, end of August?
Yep.
And it had to be spent by December 30th. This money we're going to have for 3 years or 2 years, so that we have lots of time to really be thinking about how we spend the money appropriately. I personally, and we talked about this with the administrative team, would like to see us really target the loss of learning for students, and to try to find ways of targeting with additional RTI interventions, various programs to better support our students as they transition back and try to deal with learning loss. So that's in the works. I also heard today that the CRF money that ended on the 30th of December, we heard Andrea say that we left about $40,000 on the table. The Department of Education, they are in the negotiation process right now with the feds to advocate for us to be able to keep that money and to use that money. So there is a chance that in addition to the new ESSER funds, the 1.5, 1.6, whatever that ends up being, we may be able to still utilize and access the $40,000 from our CRF1 and our CRF2. The final thing that I have here is also the state budget. Andrea gave you an update from the Finance Committee of what happened. And the state budget will be released tomorrow. So members of the public, the board will be hearing more about the state budget tomorrow. How that impacts schools, as Andrea said, we will receive the information towards the end of this month, the beginning of February. The Department of Education has been working really, really hard to try to find ways in which they can calculate subsidy for school districts that will prevent many school districts from seeing a sizable decrease in their subsidy due to a decline in student enrollment. So they've been working hard on that, and they believe that they've come up with a protocol, a process that they will be able to use that will allow the majority of the districts throughout the state to be in the black when it comes to state subsidy. It doesn't mean all school districts will be in the black, but it's sounding like it's not as detrimental and as impactful as we once thought. Now, how that all plays out for us, who knows? We've seen an increase in our valuation. That will be harmful to us. We've seen a decrease in our economically disadvantaged numbers. That will impact us. And so we'll have to see how that all plays out, but hopefully through the work that's been done at the Department of Education, hopefully our subsidy will be less impacted by it than what we had anticipated. So I'll keep you posted. So that's a lot. That's all that I have for an update.
That was a lot.
That's a lot.
Next, public comment to respond, and I have an email from Martha saying there was none. So
great.
Becky, as the public, I'd like to respond to what Pat says. Regarding funding, we did receive federal guidance this afternoon that $40,000 we have until June 30th to spend. So yes, that did just come through in an email.
Well, there.
I think what's important to know when it comes to funding at this point is the information is changing hourly. And so be aware that just because I've shared some information with you today, that doesn't mean it won't look entirely different by tomorrow. But that is the information as we know it today.
The one thing that's constant is change.
Correct.
So there we go. All right then. May I have a motion to go into executive session?
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
Before you do that, we had talked about an executive session protocol.
Yeah.
Just wanted to, and I have something that I will read. As we operate through Google Meets, just need to remind all of us of the importance of confidentiality in our executive session. So I just have a statement and a kind of a roll call to make with the board. So subjects to be discussed in executive session are limited by Maine statute and are confidential in nature. It is expected that all participants in such discussions respect the requirement for confidentiality. While the school board conducts its meetings in Google Meet, school board members will be asked to confirm that they are located in a private space where no persons other than those invited to participate in the executive session can overhear any portion of the executive session discussion. Board members who are unable to comply with that requirement should excuse themselves from participating in the executive session. So we're going to ask that board members do a yay or nay, that they are in a location that maintains complete confidentiality before we vote to go into executive session. Okay. So before we enter into executive session, school board members will now be asked to confirm that they are located in a space where no person other than those invited to participate in the executive session can overhear any portion of this confidential proceedings. Okay, so I'll do the roll. Becky Fless.
Yay, and I am in a location that is completely confidential.
Veronica.
Yay.
Nancy.
Yay, I am going to be in a in a private space. Currently, my husband's leaving the room.
Okay, thank you. Teresa.
Yay.
Matthew Lillybridge.
Yay, as soon as my son puts the dogs in their beds so there's no barking, no one will be on the same floor as me.
Okay. Jim Lothridge.
Yes, I closed the door.
Thank you. Nicole Medore.
Yay.
Matthew Marshall.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier.
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy.
Yay.
And Tony Veet.
Yay.
Great. So with that, then we do need a motion to go into executive session, Becky.
Great. A motion, please, to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Tony. A second, please, by somebody.
Second.
Second by Veronica. And I will call the roll. Becky Fleck, yay. Veronica Babcock.
Yay.
Nancy Brown.
Yay.
Teresa Garrett.
Yay.
Matthew Lillibridge.
Yay.
James Lothridge.
Yay.
Nicole Medore.
Yay.
Matthew Marshall.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier.
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy.
Yay, but Pat, there wasn't a link to a Google meeting in your invite, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
I was just about to click in and there's not one there.
Yay.
See if that works. I just sent an invitation. And so for members of the public, we do anticipate there being a vote that occurs following the executive session. So board members are going to keep this session open, okay? Don't leave this Google Meet. Just mute yourself and mute your camera. And then in your email, you should have received an invitation to the other executive session. And so just go and log into that and we will see you there shortly. Administrators, you are welcome to leave and call it a night, and we will see you all soon. All right, bye. Okay,
we're
ready to go?
back.
Great. So Becky, we will need a motion from the board to adopt the Memorandum of Understanding as it was presented to the board. And it's a Memorandum of Understanding between the MSAD11 Board of Directors and the MSAD11 Education Associations, MEA/NEA.
Who would like to make that motion?
North Carolina. I'll make that motion,
Thank you.
as said.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Nicole. Great. I will then call the roll. Becky Fless, yay. Veronica Babcock.
Yay.
Yay.
Teresa Garrett.
Yay.
Matthew Lillibridge.
Yay.
Jim Lothridge.
Yay.
Nicole Madore.
Yay.
Matthew Marshall.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier.
Okay.
Alyssa Tracy.
Yay.
And Tony Beat.
Yay.
Thanks. Unanimous. Thank you.
And that's a wrap.
Got it out. What fun was that?
And we have 15 minutes to spare before the board would have to extend the ending of the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. We did well. We had some really great conversation over some super important stuff. And we're not at the 3-hour mark.
And no one cried.
And no one-
It was a good meeting.